Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Aaron Burr from the Free Thought Doctrine. Just wanted to do a quick little episode. Something caught my eye this morning when I was looking at my Twitter feed. Glenn Greenwald, who's a reporter for The Intercept and who's kind of known, or basically is known for being someone who goes against the grind, right? Like, he's a liberal lefty, but the left tries to cancel him all the time. Like, he speaks out against the cathedral, and they try to destroy him regularly. So because of that, even though is a lefty, I'm a huge fan of his. And a couple of his Twitter feeds here I want to go over. The one that first caught my eye this morning, let me go ahead and read this one out for you guys, because it perfectly portrays at least the way I've been feeling about things when it comes to Afghanistan. So here we go. The employees of media corporations who have spent the last 3 weeks claiming to care so deeply about the lives of Afghans are engaged in a fraudulent charade. They ignored the country for years as large numbers of civilians were killed by U.S. airstrikes. They just want more war. People too young to remember 2002, 2003, or who didn't pay attention don't realize how pro-war the media is in their blood. It wasn't Fox that sold the Iraq War. They did, but their viewers already supported it. It was liberal outlets, New York Times, New Yorker, Atlantic, that did the job. National Review and all its various neocons never changed from 2003. Many hated Trump in large part because he challenged pro-war orthodoxies, while usually capitulating to the deep state. Now they're praising media coverage of Afghanistan. That's why. This thread adeptly lays out the reality. Trump, to his credit, is the one who initiated the withdrawal agreement with the Taliban. Thus, Biden didn't have the choice to continue the status quo. It was 1, get out, or 2, send in a troop surge. That's it. Again, some legitimately want to leave, but are angry about how it was done. I've criticized Biden most for lying about the likely outcome, which created false expectations. But this is Biden standing up to the deep state, the media, NATO, pro-war NGOs. That deserves credit. One of the most positive aspects of the Trump presidency, in my view, was his spreading skepticism and distrust about the CIA, Pentagon, NSA access. He held up a mirror on the rotted U.S. ruling elite. This is Biden following through in policy. Lots of criticisms, but that's good. This is one of the major problems with having corporate outlets filled with ex-Pentagon officials, CIA operatives, security state goons as employees or key sources, many of whom now work for the weapons industry, hidden from viewers, readers. This is who media people talk to. Also, please don't forget what CIA did, along with their partners at the New York Times, to try to sabotage Trump's plan to withdraw all troops from Afghanistan in 2020. They concocted a lie about Russian bounties that pro-war Dems and Liz Cheney then used. So, a lot said there about the corporate media. Basically, are a bunch of fucking warmongers, right? They love war. I don't know if it's because what it does for ratings or just because of the ties they have with Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or whatever various entities of the military industrial complex, but they love war. They ignore and are silent about the casualties of all the U.S. bombings, right? Where plenty of evidence shows that most bombings resulted in upwards of 90% casualties in civilian casualties, right? But hey, let's go ahead and keep our mouths shut about that shit. But the moment we try to pull out of a war, the moment we try to pull out of Afghanistan, suddenly it's all about the people. It's all about the innocent civilian casualties and all that stuff, right? But it's only when it's politically expedient do they even bring this stuff up. I want to show you guys another one too. All right, here's one. This is a response to someone else's tweet, but I'll read his response and then to what he's responding to, and then go on with the thread. So it says, this is the mentality that led to endless wars since 9/11 and before. It's the mentality Trump and now Biden vehemently condemned. But amazingly, a huge chunk of both parties, as well as most of the media and of course the national security blob, agree with Mitch McConnell. So the tweet from Ryan Struck is quoting Mitch McConnell. President Biden's responsibility is simple. He should clearly and firmly state that the United States will stay for however long it takes and use whatever force is necessary to ensure we don't or do not abandon our people or friends. But Glenn Greenwald goes on. He says, staying one day past August 31st would undoubtedly and inevitably provoke attacks of all kinds by the Taliban, who would see it as a violation of their agreement with two U.S. administrations. That in turn would require a huge surge of U.S. NATO troops and the restarting of the war. If you claim to care about the Afghan people, look at what the war itself did to them. U.S. NATO airstrikes killed tens of thousands of civilians. It destabilized their country. It propped up a deeply corrupt government that cared about nothing other than their Dubai lifestyle. I understand the argument that the U.S. should have evacuated Americans and some Afghan allies months ago, but that's where Biden's lies unfortunately came into play. Doing that would have revealed a lack of trust in the Afghan government, which is why Ghani argued against. That's why I think Biden's lies about the likely outcome withdrawal were so damaging. It gives the pro-war neocon goals an opportunity to claim vindication. See, this is what happened. If he had told the truth about Taliban takeover, evacuations could have happened in May. And the alternative reality where Trump rather than Biden presided over this Afghan withdrawal, Adam Schiff, flanked by Eric Swalwell and Liz Cheney, is now melodramatically walking impeachment documents to the Senate after notifying Manu Raju of the time so CNN could cover it. So what he's basically saying is if Trump had presided over this withdrawal, they would be trying to impeach him because that's how bad, at least optics-wise, it looks for Biden. But again, the real culprits here, or at least a major player in the entire fucked upness of the situation, is the media. The media is the enemy, right? They love war. They love war. They are the true warmongers. They sold us war back in the early 2000s after 9/11, manipulating the fear and the war fever and the need for justice and revenge from 9/11. Right? I mean, they colluded, these corporate entities colluded with the government at the time, the Bush administration, because they weren't about to waste that opportunity with all the fervor for war. They weren't about to waste that and not go to war. Like that was a key opportunity, right? To be for war at the time was seen as this patriotic duty, right? Because we were out for blood. So they cashed in on that. They manipulated and played on the fears of the public, much like they do and have done with COVID and all these other things since then, and the whole war on terror since then. So it's the corporate media, the corporate press that led us to war, that facilitated in selling this war to the public on behalf of the cathedral, and are now trying to point at Afghanistan as this huge, ugly, horrific, terrible mess in the hopes that it will prevent us from pulling out of any other war. Because now, like how Glenn just mentioned, they could be like, see, this is what happens. This is what happens when we try to pull out of a war. Like, this kind of chaos takes place, and this is why we should always maintain troops there, this and that. The same old bogus arguments they always use. But the fact of the matter is, when we're in country, when we're doing when we're quote unquote nation building and doing all the bombings and all the innocent people that are killed and in reality do turn against us, right? It's called blowback. Now, before I go, I will say one thing. I mean, obviously, for the people stuck there, the people who were so used to 20 years of America basically getting their backs and providing air support and essentially providing them security, and now they're in the unknown. And I'm not going to sit here like all these people and they just call the Taliban a terrorist, the Taliban a terrorist, now the terrorists are the terrorist one, blah, 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 terrorist. I'm not going to go that far. The Taliban are not good people, right? They're definitely not good people, and they do rule via Sharia law, and they did rule before in a very backward style of Sharia law. So I understand why a lot of the people there, the women, journalists, activists, why they're scared. And for any Americans who are stuck there, I understand that fear. So I empathize with them. Like, I understand. It must be extremely scary. As much as I complain about the tyrannical things that happen here, at least as of now, ... we don't have to worry about those things. But over there, it's a real threat right now, right? So, of course I feel for them. But something just came to me is... Something actually just came to me now, but it kind of was in the back of my head before, is for all these people that are, this is kind of off, this is kind of random, but for some people, for some of those people that are there, then all these Americans are trying to leave, right? Why? So we were supposed to be out of there by May 1st on Trump's withdrawal date, and then Biden pushed it back to September, quote unquote, 11th, right? And, you know, the Taliban were still on their same timeline in terms of moving in on the rest of Afghanistan, right? And why the hell? Let's just put yourself in the shoes of the people who went over there. Like, I read a story this morning about people, I guess they're Afghan Americans, but they went to Afghanistan this summer to visit distant family relatives and stuff, and, you know, people like that, or those type of things. Regardless of Biden coming into the White House and pushing the withdrawal back to September 11th, who in their right fucking mind would have been like, hey, let's go to Afghanistan, or hey, let's not leave, you know, way before these deadlines? Like, I just don't understand how people who went over there for all the various, some very altruistic reasons, right? Like a lot of NGOs, there's a lot of liberals over there, you know, they're trying to do their part, I guess, right? But why, you know, whether it's vacation, visiting family, for work, NGOs, charity work, whatever, why would you wait until past the original deadline even? Why would you even wait up until the original deadline? Like, if you would think if you had at least 2 brain cells up in your head, that at this point in time, or at least in January of this year, you would have got the hell out already, right? Like, what is up with that? That kind of boggles my mind. And kind of the more I think about it, it boggles my mind even more. Like, really, if you saw the situation coming, the earlier the better. I mean, I would have been out of there by the end of 2020, right? Just knowing that in a matter of months, who knows what can happen, right? I mean, anybody that has any understanding of the whole situation, especially you would think that people there would realize how precarious the whole situation was in the first place, how they were heavily reliant on U.S. military support, air support, and all that. And I mean, just you would think if you're going to go to that country for whatever reason, you would have watched even one documentary, because there's so many documentaries just on YouTube that showed how feckless the whole situation was over there, and how, you know, the at least overall the Afghan, you know, the ANA and the police forces there were just corrupt and incompetent and inept, right? And you I'm just saying, like, there's probably, you know, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of bad things that happen to people, right? Happen because they put themselves in those situations. Let's just face it. Even things that happened to myself was because you know, even when I've had shitty things happen to me myself, there have been many of those times where I kind of put myself in that situation. And we all know what I'm talking about. And how can these people not see that was going to happen? And now we have to bend over backwards and jump through all these hoops. I'm not talking necessarily about the Afghans that helped us. I'm talking about the American citizens, right? So, I don't know. I do not understand how or why the fuck you wouldn't have gotten out of there way fucking sooner. That makes no sense to me. So, again, I do feel bad for the actual Afghan people that have no choice, really, but to live there, right? That's their homeland. Like, I kind of feel bad for those people, but a lot of those people, too, weren't necessarily living in heaven under, you know, U.S. rule either. Let's also face that fact, too, right? It's just kind of, you know, a shitty situation from beginning to end. And the fact of the matter is, whether we left 15 years ago or 15 years in the future, the exact same outcome would happen. That undoubtedly would have happened. Like, I am 100% confident and convinced that whether we left 5 years in or 20 years from now, or however you want to put it, the exact same shit would happen. And that's why all these damn wars just need to stop and never happen in the first place. And I'll just leave it with that. You've been listening to Aaron Burr on the Free Thought Doctrine.